Hello there and welcome back to War Thunder. Now I present you another battle in the KMS Emden. As you will see in the background, I will have no problems whatsoever dealing with the opposition and wrecking their DDs and cruisers and everything that comes into my sight. The problem is that there is actually not that much in my clear line of sight that I can shoot, and that has to do, look at where I spawn, in the bottom right corner. You can see it on the minimap. Now today I want to make a point about the overall combat value of a vessel, and I think there are two types of ships currently in War Thunder: those who are very competitive, very strong, and have a big influence on the outcome of the game, and then the rest. And to the rest, actually, the KMS Emden belongs. And that is really strange because it is one of the biggest ships. It's one of the 3 light cruisers, but it also has so many advantages over the other cruisers. So unlike the American light cruisers, it has torpedoes, and unlike the Russian light cruiser, the Krasny Kavkaz, with the biggest guns, it has consistent DPM, it can take damage, and well, it has so many advantages. So in the real fight, you have just the right ammunition for every opponent. The stock grind is actually not that terrible, disregarding here the overall global low income, and the ship is just able to tank so much damage, being so frustrating for the enemy to gun down. You can win a 3, 4, 5 versus 1 if there are 5 destroyers shooting at you, especially in close quarters. You just angle away and calmly gun the bastards down. This is what you can do with the ship, and so the dominance has to be balanced, of course. However, there is one problem. By the way how Gaijin makes it actually appear to be balanced, they actually really quite literally put it out of the fight. Look, I now try to make a beeline to, funnily enough, B, and then from B to A. That's my plan, and I still have to angle a little bit to bring the maximum firepower to bear to maximize my DPM. So just to give you a raw comparison to the fight in a Krasny Kavkaz versus an KMS Emden, the KMS Emden has, in a broadside, 50% more guns with twice the rate of fire. So you can imagine how much more shells you bring out, you can deliver to the enemy. You also seem to have less dispersion, and the ammunition is not all that much weaker. So if you hit your enemy with 3 shells versus 2 shells with the Krasny Kavkaz, you have the very same overall effect in terms of damage, but you hit them so much more frequent, you can correct so much better. And if you lose 1 turret per broadside, that's just not all that bad, because that's a loss of roughly 16-17% of DPM compared to 25% if the Krasny Kavkaz loses 1 turret. And if you have lost all 6 turrets on 1 broadside, you just can turn around the ship and have 2 more guns to present to the enemy and to eventually damage them. And if you're good with your damage control, like controlling the flooding and controlling the fires, well, you're nearly unsinkable. The enemy needs torpedoes, the enemy needs aircraft to really put you down. But there is one further problem, and that is, when there are so many players playing here now the KMS Emden or light cruisers overall, they actually give a disadvantage to their team despite killing all the opposition, all that they can shoot at, because it doesn't really matter. I cannot really shoot into A or C. I have no influence on the outcome of the capture zone battle. And many times, and this is the major point of criticism that I have, it was the case that I spawned in my light cruisers, I got 5, 6, 7 kills, you name it, shot down aircraft, guns blazing all game up until I ran out of ammunition. My team was losing the patrol boat fight, and there was nothing that I could do, but the enemy still controlled all the capture points, or at least 2 out of 3, And so I even didn't have time to reach the second capture point before the tickets were ticking down. Despite having all the armor, all the guns, all the firepower, all the survivability to make a decisive difference, it's not decisive because it's at the wrong place. It's somewhere on the map, but not where it matters. And despite making a direct line in a fully upgraded light cruiser, I cannot reach the combat zone. And this is what makes this battle worth showing, because my team actually delayed the enemy team far long enough for me to make a difference. And now I'm in a fight versus another Emden, and he was preoccupied, and this is now a fight versus Emden, where I actually have the support of some other ships, and you can see the massive difference. So I saturate here the superstructure and the bow and the stern area with HE, but eventually I will cause flooding on the unarmored parts of the hull. Here you can see he's down to 63% buoyancy, his crew is down, and now he's listing to one side. To my advantage, to that one side, where if I switch now to armor piercing, which I just did, I can actually bypass here the turtleback armor and go into the citadel, killing more crew. He's down to 13%. And at the end, he's dead and I'm not. So he was shooting at somebody else, but he was gunned down. So I can take on all the destroyers at once, okay? I can really delay their advantage long enough. If I'd had a clear line of fire to just use here the grey boxes and to shoot at them, well, I can do that, and I've sunken enough ships that I can say that I know how to use it. But I can also tell you that this is one of the most unreliable ways to fight a fight, and it's one very reliable way to run out of ammunition. So you can see I stayed here with armor piercing for a time because there's just so many shells that you have per gun. So that's one of a little of a drawback for the KMS M. Very often an unexperienced player might not really stay in the battle for that long for him to appear as a disadvantage. So here is now the other KMS Emden, and immediately I use the HE with base fuse on him again to force his damage control, to flood him, to kill the crew, and then finish him off if we get closer, where he lists to one side with hopefully armor piercing. So this is the usual way how to gun down a KMS Emden with another KMS Emden. But the Trenton just doesn't have the standing power to, well, how to say it, to be able to take the return fire for my Emden. Same goes with the Krasny Kafkas, that also doesn't have the DPM, the effective DPM, to do that much damage. So very often people tell me, well, if you talk about something, show us a negative example. Now that's very often difficult, because the most annoying battles were those where nothing happens, and that you get smart comments like, learn to play, you noob, oh, you just should have switched ship type. But if I would jump out here, out of this ship, it costs me 20,000 silver lines, which is a lot, and it costs me that per battle, not per death. Either that is now a bug, or a World of Warships made its appearance in terms of their overall repair policy within War Thunder, which would be really, really bad. So while I was talking, I was killing destroyers, cruisers, left, right and center, and now I actually will turn in. Now I made my dominance over B apparent, and there is not much that the enemy can do. Some destroyers of mine are overextending. They're doing some really, really stupid stuff by going into the spawn area of the enemy rather than going for A. And very often it's the destroyers that are the most decisive ships in a battle. And if some Fletchers or some Z-20s just bypass the fight in the open versus the cruisers or other destroyers and just go directly for the closest capture zone that belongs to actually the patrol boat area, and just harvest here all the patrol boats and gun them down and capture that points while the cruisers can't shoot them. Well, you see where the problem lies. The destroyers are the ship class that really dictates here the win ratio. And I will give you now a little bit of an example. So, with the Z20 I played 67 battles, of which I won 67.2%. I died 42 times, and I shot down 9 planes and killed 251 ships. That's impressive. That's nearly a 6-to-1 KD, okay? So roughly 6-to-1 KD with a nearly 70% win ratio. With the KMS Emden I played 77 games, of which I won 51.9%. So just above 50%. Despite, surviving more than half the games, just having died 28 times out of the 77 battles. I shot down 10 planes and 226 planes. That's roughly a 8-to-1 KD. And very often I just bailed out of frustration because there was nothing left to shoot for me. Because I was sure that I couldn't reach the capture zones in time, that there was nothing that I could do and I would lose the battle anyway, but that counted as a death. So effectively what I could achieve in this ship is without trouble a 10-to-1 KD versus destroyers, patrol boats and other cruisers. I'm experienced enough to, claim that right now, and I don't think that you can achieve something similar in one of the other light cruisers or a destroyer. And yet I have nearly a 20% less win ratio by having such a much more impressive KD. You see, it's all about where you spawn and how long it takes you to reach the combat zone. Now here we actually have a fine example of the War Thunder ship damage model, and we hit here the ship with multiple big armor piercing shells, and another salvo is about to be loaded, but this little patrol boat here from the Russian Navy just doesn't want to sink. I actually have to saturate to hit all the sections of that ship to kill enough crew to, kill it. And I used here my secondary gun to achieve this. So this is maybe an area where then again the Krasny Kavkaz is better. But it's not massively better, and you very often have the problem that you get stopped in the Krasny Kavkaz before you can achieve that, or before you can get into this position. So again, my team held out for such a long time, and while I'm now not the best shot anymore, I will, hit the enemy destroyers now in multiple sections where it doesn't really matter. I used the wrong ammunition type for the wrong sections of the ship, and it takes me way too long to gun down here this little destroyer. I really should consider loading here the base fuse HE and just aim at the front section. But, he will die. He cannot realistically hope to kill me, except with, torpedoes. But I'm already turning in towards the capture zone. If he has launched his torpedoes, it would be about by now. And usually people trust the gray leading indicator and then fire all their torps there. Mostly one torpedo hit in the center of the ship is enough. So 7 kills just like that. I have still a lot of crew. I still can, deal with any opponent that there is. No problem. And now I actually finally reached the cap. And look how long it took me. A very long time. And our tickets already have nearly all bled down, despite my team, holding up for so long. Now, one final thing to notice, which is pretty funny, is here now the aiming system. I need to stay like this in the capture zone because I needed to avoid the torpedoes, which I saw, and now my ship is with the front lifted up, and now I cannot hit here the enemy, well, cruiser or light destroyer, whatever it is. So that's another funny story how the aiming system can be screwed with. So you can see I was in the battle from the very start to the very finish, yet my overall impact on how we win the game isn't there anymore, because I couldn't defend my ships because they were all away from my line of fire, and the attacker ships could do all the damage, except for the destroyers and the enemy light cruisers that were actually giving me targets in the open. So despite getting all the kills, despite getting all the damage done, my influence on the actual outcome of the game is not as great as in a destroyer. I showed this multiple times with the Cowell, with the Z-20, probably with some other ships, and if there is one patrol boat that just has some big autocannons, which I hopefully will be able to revisit in a few days time, then you can see there are a few problems. Now this patrol boat could now go on a suicide run towards me with torpedoes, and I just can't hit him with the 20mm, and all the 20mm have now no armor piercing shells, so this is why this ship could survive for that long, up until the point that he gave me the broadside. Now I reversed here out of the capture point that gives the enemy team now the chance, or gave this patrol boat in particular the chance to decap, and just before I can really accelerate to go back into the capture zone, yeah, my arch nemesis comes in, and it's a plane, and he gets a very good hit in with some bombs, namely in my ammo rack. Yeah, I didn't hear it coming, I didn't see it coming, my gunners were not really opening up. One capture zone, a few assists, and 9 kills. And I can tell you, we actually lost that game. So without further ado, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, I hope you enjoyed this rather long video. Give it a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, let me know in the comment section what you think about this whole balance issue and leaving a ship out of the combat for, you know, kind of balancing reasons, and as usual we will see each other on the waves of War Thunder.